apologize. We're still just waiting on one board member. Thanks. Sorry, the Board of Zoning Appeals will come to order. We're just going to change the order on the agenda a little bit so that you're not sitting here all day waiting for us. So first of all, I would like to explain to you our process. And our process is that I will call the case. Our staff will go over the particulars of the case and why we're here and what kind of variances we're looking at. And then one of the board members that was actually out at the property this week will give us paint more of a picture of what the neighborhood's like and tell us a little bit more. We'll ask the applicant to come forward. The board will ask questions after the applicant gives us any additional information they would like to give us. And then once we've asked all our questions, I will open it up to public comment, and we'll review any, letters or anything that are in the file as far as public comment goes, and take testimony from anybody in the audience at that time. Once that's done, we typically close the public hearing, and what that means is that we have conversation among ourselves, and we don't take any more information unless one of the board members really feels that they need it. Then we will ask you for more information. Once we're done discussing the case, the person in charge of the case for the day, who is out at the property this week, will then have the option of tabling the request, which doesn't happen very often, but if they feel that there's a need for more time or more information, they can do that and table. They can approve the request or they can deny the request. And then you just work with staff after the meeting and go from there. So with that, I would ask that we have the approval of the minutes from August 21st, please.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
As appropriate?
As appropriate.
Okay, great, thank you. It's been seconded by Mr. Lewis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Oh, Chair, I believe you just waived the reading of the minutes. We also need to approve the minutes.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Yes, okay.
Second.
It's seconded again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. We're going to start with, I believe, 2058 Kelvin, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could,
Attorney Hooker, do we need any formal motions to amend the agenda?
No, you're fine. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, our first case on the agenda is 2058 Calvin Avenue Southeast. If you give me a moment to pull up our slideshow. The applicant is requesting several dimensional variances to facilitate the construction of a distribution warehouse on the subject property. The variances include a dimensional variance of 23.1 feet to reduce the required 25-foot setback along the Hazen front lot line to 1.9 feet, a dimensional variance of 2 feet to reduce the required 25-foot side yard setback from an adjacent residential use to 23 feet, a dimensional variance of 2.5 feet to reduce the required 5 feet side yard setback to 2.5 feet, and a dimensional variance to eliminate the parking requirement. As you can see on your screens, the property is located in the southeast corner of the city. It is adjacent to an industrial area surrounded by residential areas. You can see the property is southwest of the intersection of Kalamazoo and Burton along Calvin Avenue Southeast. To the east are residential properties, to the north and south are industrial properties, and then to the west is a large industrial property. The property is currently vacant and paved with hard surface. It is slightly over 4,000 square feet below the minimum 10,000 square feet required by ordinance. This parcel is consistent with the size of all of the other parcels on the block. The property is a corner lot and has two frontages, one on the north along Hazen and one on the west along Calvin, and two side lot lines to the east and to the south. The Calvin frontage has an established building line based on the structures to the south, and the proposed building is appropriately placed based on the site plan. The Hazen frontage does not have an established building line. Oh, excuse me, I also had images of the site. So as you can see here, there are, this is the west side of the property, and then a view from the north. As shown on the screen, this is the proposed variance for the front yard setback along Hazen Street. The Hazen frontage does not have an established building line, and there is a 25-foot setback from the front property line. The building is proposed to be 1.9 feet from the front lot line and requires a variance of 23.1 feet. The next variance request is for the side yard to the east. As the property to the east is residential, the side yard setback is 25 feet. The building is proposed to be placed 23.1 feet from the residential structure and requires a variance of 1.9 feet. I worked with the applicant to locate the building as far from the adjacent residential use as possible. The next variance request is for the side yard setback to the south. Per ordinance requirements, a building can be placed on the lot line in this zone district. If a building is not placed at the lot line, it is required to be 5 feet away. The applicant is proposing the building to be located approximately 2.5 feet away from the side lot line. And then finally, the fourth variance request is for the elimination of the parking requirements. The property is not proposed to have any parking to accommodate the use. The applicant did submit a letter detailing community engagement and outreach conducted by the applicant. The applicant reached out to 3 people, 2 of whom responded. Notably, the applicant did contact the adjacent residential property to the east, and that property owner was in support of the project. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. King for the site report.
Excellent. Thank you, Rowan. So I visited this property with staff on Monday, midday, and it's very much as Rowan in the photographs described it. This is a very compact industrial street where the individual lots are on that side of the street are platted very similar to the residential streets directly to the east. So typically about 4,000, 5,000 square feet. It is a corner lot with a pretty decent, about 15, 20 feet of right-of-way between the property line and the street. To the north, south, and west are all operating industrial capacities. There's a chemical plant to the south, and then a tool and die shop to the west, and then it's all residential to the east. The residential property that's immediately behind this parcel, it's actually the garage. It's the south side or the west side of the garage that faces this property, and there's some brush and shrubs that are along there. Something else that's kind of notable about the site that you can kind of see in these photos, but at the rear of the property, in the upper corner, there's actually some utility boxes that sit there in that space. I think it's worth noting as how the building's going to be positioned. There are some utilities in that space. And I think that's just about it.
Is the applicant here for 2058 Calvin?
Yes, here.
Come on up, please.
Hello, and thank you all for reviewing this case. Really appreciate your time and effort on it.
We need your name for the record.
My name is Mel Kotler.
Great, thanks. What would you like to tell us?
Well, Rowan, first I just want to thank him for going over the technical aspects of it. My wife and I are local business owners, and this lot, we really want to add value to the neighborhood and the community. Currently, as it sits as a parking lot, there's some unwanted traffic that comes through there, trash, and like unknown parked cars. So as we acquired the property, we wanted to add value to that neighborhood and community by putting up a building and abiding by the zoning, and wanted to put a building on there that would personally fit our needs as a warehouse. And so we appreciate you. I think it'll have a positive impact for the neighborhood and the community there. We spoke to the just east and of the property. A nice family lives there, and then also their neighbor. They were open and very receptive to reducing the unwanted traffic there and having a building there. So we had a good conversation with them. And I think, we believe like the request aligns with the spirit of the zoning code to make it very orderly and in line with our neighbors, Lilly Chemical there. And I think, that's it. It'll fit the surrounding area.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Yeah. Questions?
Yes, please, thank you. Two quick questions. One regarding the variance request on the south side of the building. So the variance of 2.5 feet to reduce the required 5-foot side yard setback to 2.5 feet. My understanding, and Rowan, maybe you could help with this too, is that what's allowable is either a full 5-foot setback, or it could be built right on the lot line.
That is
correct? So either one of those options would be permissible. Are either one of those possible with your building plans to avoid having to request that variance, or is that exact setting of 2.5 feet back from the lot line necessary for operational purposes, or I guess what's the intent of that?
Yeah, so, thank you for asking that and bringing that up. So why we requested the entire 38 feet there and 2.5 feet instead of the 5 feet from that property line is to make room for an overhead door for box trucks to unload, as well as like a man door. So as wide as we can get it would really help with the purpose of the building. We're talking about another 2.5 feet, right? So, we'd be open to possibly, it would have to be an even number, just because it'll be a manufactured building. So maybe going from 38 to, 36 could be possible. Yeah, if it's required. I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, that helps. So it's a manufactured structure?
Yeah.
Okay, so prefab
It's prefab,
structure.
yeah.
Okay. And then my second question was just regarding the parking variance request.
Yeah.
Not knowing or not needing to necessarily consider the full use of the structure, I believe the requirement for this type of property would be 2 parking spaces is what would be required?
2 per employee.
2 per employee, okay. So I guess without having parking on site, what are the intended plans for parking?
Yeah, so along either Hazen or Calvin, there's, like along those streets would be the parking. The proposed employees for us is 2 employees, so 4 spots. Yeah, they would be along, it would be along the streets there, street parking.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
Are you working with an architect yet on it?
Once we get this, we have had preliminary conversations with an architect firm, but after this gets approved on some level, then we'll, fully engage them.
I'm just, my question is, so that wall that gets 2.5 feet from the building, I'm an architect, but I can't remember the answer to this. It might need to be fire rated if you get that close, and with a pre-engineered building, you might not be able to achieve that rating. I don't know if that was looked into at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're not like fully set on being at prefab. It also might be a block building, and that wall, we're open to making it like a block building, so it's fire rated.
Okay. Yeah, just something to keep in mind as you move forward. Can you tell me more about the equipment in the right-of-way at that northeast corner of your lot?
Yeah, so like what equipment will be?
No, like the existing stuff on the ground.
Yeah, it is consumers' energy,
Okay.
and it's I don't know exactly the dimensions there, but it's a consumer's energy box.
Do you know if they have an easement for that?
I believe they do.
Assume they do. They're consumers energy.
Yeah,
but-
I believe they have an easement there, yeah. Because that, at one point, that box was not on that corner, but it was on the Calvin Hazen corner. And then they moved it, so I'm assuming they have an easement.
I don't have more questions for him, but I do have questions for Rowan.
Okay.
Does anybody else have
Thank you.
questions? No? Okay, I'm still confused as to why you can't put the building on the lot line. And since you said you aren't real sure about this being a prefab or a block, it throws even more questions in, because it now, with exception to the setback from Hazen Street. Okay, so that's 25 feet back from the street. It basically leaves you with no property to put a building on. I understand that
Yes.
need. But if you're still under the planning process for the building itself, I have a problem thinking of this as a need for a variance for anything except for the setback from Hazen Street, because you could make adjustments to meet the setback from the neighbor, the house, and you could either put the building that you're going to build on the lot line or 5 feet away, because you could adjust the size of the building if you decide to do 5 feet away. So help me understand
Sure.
why you decided to pick that size of a prefab and spend the money to come for the variances when there's a possibility you won't need any of them except for the one from Hazen. Does that make sense?
I think so. Just to clarify, so you're asking why can't we just be on the lot line
Correct.
closest to the existing commercial building there?
Correct.
Okay.
And,
So right now we're oh, I'm sorry.
and
go
2 more feet away from the building behind you, the house behind you.
ahead. Okay.
But start with being on your lot line, next to the building next to you.
So the lot line, we're asking to be 2.5 feet
Correct.
away from our lot line.
So why couldn't you put the building on the lot line?
Oh, and make it a little bit bigger, you're saying?
Well, not necessarily making it bigger, but taking away the need to ask for a variance when you could put it right on the lot line. And then you wouldn't need a variance. You'd be within the rules.
Yeah, that's a good point. What
Yep,
she's saying.
So, the chair is asking if you could put the building at either this green line or this green line. This would be your lot line or 5 feet away. Would either of those work?
Yeah, we could do it at our lot line. The initial thought was to maybe be a few feet away from it, just to have a little bit more space to walk between there if needed be. So we weren't so close to them.
Okay.
But we're open to that.
Okay. And what about the 2 feet from the residential behind you?
So that initially was 25 feet was the requirement.
Yes.
Yeah. That also was just to see how far we can increase the footprint. But if that had to be reduced and we had to meet the 25 feet, then
Okay.
that'd be okay too. Yeah, those are good points.
And I understand the request for the parking
Yeah.
for your ability to be able to put as much storage space as you can on that property.
Yeah, that's
To,
correct.
Be supplying space for parking would make it difficult.
It would.
And
Yep.
there was actually street parking, I don't know about you, but there was street parking when I went by at about 1 o'clock or noon on Wednesday.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something midday, and
Yeah.
there was ample street parking.
Okay.
So the main, as you said, the main variances would be the parking variance and then
Hazen Street.
Hazen. Yeah.
Yeah, the setback on Hazen Street.
Then we could make it a usable lot.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good points.
What do, anybody else have any questions?
Mine's more for Rowan.
Okay.
Sorry. It might be for both of you at the same time. So, you had mentioned, there was the mention of an overhead door potentially going in. So if that happens, what's the restrictions on trucks backing in to that off the streets?
Yeah, without knowing exactly, my assumption, and I'll ask the applicant to confirm, would be that the truck dock the door would be right here. I believe our setback, and I might ask my colleague, Ms. Wahamaki, to look this up real quickly and confirm, is 5 feet for a truck dock and industrial to be away from a lot line. So it's not uncommon for trucks to doors to be that close to the front lot line. And I'll maybe wait for Ms. Wahamaki to pull that exact number. Yeah.
You can't see what? Oh, we can't see
Oh, you can't see the
Larry
mouse?
can't see your diagram because you're standing in front of it.
Oh. Is it not on your screens?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Thanks.
Yeah, so there's a curb cut off Calvin that I assumed that the truck dock would line up with. Yep. Or it's an overhead door, not a truck dock. But.
Yeah, so here's the diagram. Okay. All All right.
Rowan, so is there like what's dictating that front face of the building?
Along Galvin?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a established building line with the existing commercial buildings to the south.
you have the ability within a couple feet to move that, right? To approve buildings within a couple feet of that existing.
Yes, in mixed-use commercial zone districts, I'm struggling to recall if I have that same flexibility in industrial, and I can look that up real quick and get an answer.
Yeah, just why not move it 1.5 feet, whatever, towards Calvin, then you don't need it anymore because
Yeah,
Right.
your RBL is fine.
yep.
And then I guess in the TNTBA district where you have the same 0 or 5 rule, there's also a footnote in that that says as practicable. That doesn't exist in the TN, SDIT, whatever. Is there a reason why that footnote does not exist there?
That's a great question. I'm not unsure why the discrepancy between the two.
Okay. Because in my opinion, 2.5 feet is a, well, other than the fire issue, is a nice as practicable position, because when you do put it on the lot line, it does cause you to get permission from your neighbor to, as I know, dig a hole on their property. So if that neighbor decides that they don't want to let you do that, it's a problem for our applicant. So my point is generally that I don't know why the ordinance changed between different sections of the ordinance for a very similar set of text, but in another section of the ordinance that has a 0 or 5, there is the as practicable footnote.
So he could do a 5-foot.
So he could do a 2.5, like if he was in TNTBA and asked for the same thing, as practicable to me, I would interpret 2.5 feet as practicable because that's as close as he can get to the lot line without digging down onto his neighbor's property, because foundation's about 4.5 feet, slope up at about half, and
So you're talking about construction of the actual building?
yeah, so as practicable, yeah.
Got it.
Now, I don't think that solves his fire rating issue, but
Yeah, I'm not sure on why there's that discrepancy. I know that the SDIT language specifically says where a building is not placed on the lot line, it's 5 feet, and that language is not in other zone districts. It's unique to SDIT.
question for the applicant. Say Consumers Energy was willing to relocate that equipment there, it's probably a transformer. Would you want to put parking behind your building off of Hazen Street?
It's possible. Yeah.
Because right now, it's not possible, it's not physically possible.
Yeah, if they would move it and then we would end up putting a driveway there.
Yeah. Like, what's your plan with the back of the lot otherwise?
Yeah, it would make it more usable if consumers moved it. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good idea.
points. Good points. Okay. Any other questions up here? No? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Did you say there was outreach to the neighbor behind and a few other lots, correct?
Correct, yep.
Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to talk to us about 2058 Calvin Southeast? Okay. What would you like to do?
I'd like to make a motion then to close the public hearing.
Okay. Okay, it's seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. What would you like to do now?
So I appreciate the conversation and the questions that were asked, and I think I'd like to take those into consideration when making my motion. It seems that based off of the conversation and what's practically possible, that we can limit the number of variances that are required for this property, but are still able to move forward with doing something. So I'd like to make a motion, unless there's any other questions or discussion.
I don't see any.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I would like to make a motion to approve, and Rowan, keep an eye on my language for me, I want to approve a dimensional variance of 23.1 feet to reduce the required 25-foot setback along the Hazen front lot line to 1.9 feet. And I'd also like to include in that a dimensional variance to eliminate the parking requirement.
Okay.
Okay. Now I'll go through and review the standards. So I believe that standard 1, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions, is met. The contributing factors here include the limited size and shape of the lot, the adjacent residentially zoned property, and the 2 frontages on Hazen and Kelvin. These constraints make it nearly impossible to apply the existing standard, as it would restrict the buildable area for the intended zone to merely a few square feet. So simply put, applying the standards would keep this property idle indefinitely. I believe standard 2, substantial property right, has been met. This variance will enable the property owner to utilize the parcel for its intended purpose, a property right enjoyed by others in the zone district. Additionally, other properties in the zone district are configured similarly due to how the land was originally platted. Standard 3, not self-created. I believe that this standard has been met. This lot was originally platted, to mirror residential lots to the east, limiting the buildable area under the current standard. Neither the lot configuration nor the applicable standard was created by the applicant. Standard 4, no substantial detriment. I believe that this standard has been met. Both the use and configuration of the proposed structure are consistent with the zone district. The applicant has identified that the required screening and landscaping will be applied. Ample on-street parking exists to absorb the parking required for the use. And I'd also like to note that there is access to public transportation if needed. There's been no vocal opposition from neighboring properties. Standard 5, consistency with the master plan zoning ordinance. I believe that this has been met. This is an SDIT industrial transportation zone within a neighborhood center district. This variance will enable the property to support the activities proposed for this neighborhood and activate a currently unused urban industrial lot.
Is there support?
Support?
Okay, no. Conversations, additions?
This part's pretty easy to me.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I said this part's pretty easy to me in terms of, I agree with every point that Jeff made about how the lot came to be and how the zoning ordinance affects it, and that it's not practical to use it in its current configuration within the ordinance. I'd like to talk more about the following 2 issues, but we'll leave that to the next discussion.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve the dimensional variances for the setback on Hazen and the no parking request? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So are you expecting more discussion about this?
I just wonder if, because I'm assuming that Jeff is going to go into a denial for the other 2, and I wonder if we might table the side yard setback to allow him the opportunity to work out what's possible, right? Because he might not be able to build on that lot line because he might not be able to get an agreement from the adjacent property owner, at which he'd have a year then if we deny it,
Got
before
it.
he can come back.
But he can also design the building to be 5 feet out.
He could, but by tabling it, it gives him the opportunity to work it out, and maybe he'll design it at 5 feet and not come back. Maybe he'll design it at the lot line, not come back, or maybe he'll come back because 2.5 feet makes the most sense, but he's put the time into figuring it out.
And I guess I'm a little bit at a loss. City Attorney, do we need a motion to deny the other 2?
Do you need one? If you don't pass a motion on the other variances, then he has not received them, but there's been no decision on them. So he wouldn't have any ability to appeal anything if you don't make a decision.
Appeal to the courts?
Yeah.
Okay. But does it also give him the grace to come back if he decides he needs that side yard setback?
Correct. If the board denies a variance, then you can't bring a similar request within a year, yeah.
Okay, but
Yeah.
what if we don't make a decision?
then there's no precedential effect as far as the BZA goes.
So he could come back
Yes,
and ask for that side yard.
yeah.
I guess I'd like to ask what staff's preference would be. We either have a table that hangs out there until something's decided, or we do nothing, and if when he's ready and decides what he's building here needs or doesn't need a variance, then he can come back and do that.
Yeah, I think procedurally and for the record, staff's recommendation would be to table the requests if the boards feel like that there are additional facts, or just to like leave the door open, no pun intended, for the applicant. Just so if there was a question about the outcome of this case, that it would be in the official record that they were tabled for future
So
consideration.
you'd rather have an outcome than not.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep.
What is your choice?
So it sounds like procedurally and for the benefit of the applicant that tabling would be the best course of action. So I will.
We have two points that we did not address.
Yeah. So I will include both of those points in tabling this so that there can be at least the procedural step and staff can continue to work with the applicant. So I'm going to make a motion to table the dimensional variance of 2 feet to reduce the required 25-foot side yard setback from an adjacent residential use to 23 feet, and a dimensional variance of 2.5 feet to reduce the required 5-foot setback to 2.5 feet. Rowan's nodding, so I think that was correct.
Okay. So there's a motion on the table to table those two variances, which are the east side or the side next to the house to, for that variance request, as well as the side yard setback to the south with the existing, against the existing commercial building next door. Any other comments be added? Is there a second on this? Oh, there was a second on it? Okay, thanks. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, thank you. Thanks for your guidance, Rowan.
Yep.
You can work with staff. Good luck with it. Okay. Okay, now we're going to go back and go to our case at 902 Scribner Northwest. And, yeah, the applicant just wants to make his way forward, and we'll wait for Rowan to do a staff report. Okay. Great. Oops.
Okay, our next case on the agenda, original agenda item A, is for look away. Is for 902 Scribner Avenue Northwest. The request before you today is for an existing parking area to be replaced, and it requires several variances due to the loss of existing nonconformities. The variances requested in order to reconstruct the parking area include a dimensional variance to allow parking within a defined front yard, a dimensional variance to exceed the maximum number of required parking spaces, and a dimensional variance to eliminate the required landscape screening between a parking area and public right-of-way. As shown on the image, the site is in the northwest corner of the city, quite close to the Grand River, sandwiched between US 131 and the Grand River along Scribner. The site is in an existing industrial kind of flex area on the future land use plan in the city's master plan. It is designated as an innovation center, which calls for the creation of mixed use and employment that capitalize on the city's history and industry. Looking at the north end of the site, it appears that this end is a slightly more customer-facing parking. You can see several entrances as well as a larger loading area there to the left. Kind of moving around the site, on the east portion of the site, there's a small drive aisle that goes along the building between the sidewalk and the building. There are also additional loading docks on the southeast side of the building, and then the south side of the building is more parking. The applicant is proposing to completely reconstruct the parking lot in a similar manner as it exists today. The reconstruction will result in the loss of all existing nonconformities. In August of 2025, the City of Grand Rapids City Commission passed a zoning ordinance amendment that provided a path for the reconstruction of parking areas in the front yard. The board was kind of the originator of that text amendment. Within that amendment were the requirements that parking areas that were replaced in the front yard cannot exceed more than 20 spaces or 20% of the parking requirement per ordinance, whichever is greater. And so this project is proposing to exceed the parking requirement and thus does not qualify for that administrative departure that was recently passed by the City Commission. One of the requests before you today is a dimensional variance for that replacement of the front yard parking. As you can see on the screen, the red areas shown are the parking areas within the front yard. The parking lot extends down the east side of the building, and per ordinance requirements, screening is required along this frontage. At its tightest point, there's 18 feet in width between the building and the sidewalk. The applicant is requesting a variance to eliminate the screening requirements along the east side of the property/building, indicated in purple on the screen. Based on ordinance requirements and a building square footage of roughly 35,500 square feet, no more than 36 spaces would be permitted to be reconstructed. The applicant is proposing 49 spaces, and thus the third variance request is to exceed the maximum number of required parking. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Lockman.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was able to observe the site with staff earlier this week. The building everything there is very well maintained. The parking lot looks like it is generally at capacity. They're proposing a reconstruction of the lot in effect for everything to be as it is, other than improved in terms of reconstructing the parking lot. So the adjacent buildings also don't have any screening to them. The building, I believe, was built sometime many years, probably prior to I think it was 2008 amendment that would have added some of these different obligations or limitations to the building. So it looks very much in kind with all of its surrounding areas, and the space is being well used.
All right. We can have the applicant come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Richard Craig, Craig Architects. I think you can hear me without the microphone, can't you?
Actually, we're recording. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Sorry.
This is the former Voss Glass building. They were there for 50 or more years at least. Rose Medical, about 3 years ago, purchased the building. We did a complete renovation inside. It's called manufacturing, but it's a little different than I think manufacturing is normally defined. We have a number of clean room. They do clean room manufacturing there. We have one that's basically the same area as this space here, but it's 25 by 100 feet. And there's 15 or 16 people in each shift that work in there. The zoning ordinance says that's less than one person because it's a quarter per every 1,000 square feet. So the problem we've got is that they have on both of these sites, and we'll get to the other site when this is finished, because they actually have two buildings they want to do this parking resurfacing and renovation too. So the problem now is that they have two shifts. They've got just enough, with maybe a few spots to spare when the first shift comes in the morning. Second shift has to park on the street. Some of them then at lunch, when their lunch is about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, will go out and repark their cars in the parking lot. So anything that reduces the number of parking spots is a problem for them in all these cases. We have a little more area on this site than on the other site in terms of there's a little variance between what we need and what we have, but what we need is a far cry from what the zoning ordinance asks for this type of thing. And I think that's because, if we were building cars, maybe that quarter person per thousand might be a good number, but it's just not for what they do there. We are not replacing or changing or adding anything. The only difference you would see at the end of this is that it's a clean asphalt surface now. My understanding is if this were just a resurfacing, this wouldn't be required, it would need to be here. But it's more than resurfacing because some of the base, the top coat, it's not just removing the top coat and putting a new top coat on. Some of the base has to be replaced. There's some concrete there that's cracked that has to be replaced. That brings it over into this requirement that we get a variance for that. And so there may be a little bit of a gap between what would be called a major parking lot reconfiguration and a retopping. It's really neither one of those. It falls in between. So I'm happy to answer any questions you've got.
Ms. Lockman?
The only question that I have, and maybe it's a better question for staff, but it's mostly just so that it's, everybody has the information in front of them. Do you know how much it costs for an application like this?
This was $1,000, and we got a little break on the second one. Yeah. Isn't that correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have questions? Yes.
Sorry, how many people per shift are in the building?
On this site, it's on my,
Where'd I write?
30 people per shift on this building.
Sorry, how many?
30 people per
30,
shift.
okay. And they overlap, so there's times when there's 60 people on site?
There would be need for 60 spots, but, they're parking on the street now. But, yeah.
Okay. On the east side of the building, where the blacktop wraps, what is there a need to be able to drive around that east side of the building? Right there, yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a need. It's too narrow to park. They do run some of their trucks along there, but I'd have to be honest with you and say I don't know that it's that they can't do without it.
Okay.
I wish they were here to
Yeah.
say I'm wrong, but I don't see that as a case.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to circulate around that site on right-of-ways. Those are my only questions.
I have a question, and can you do you know how much of an overlap there is between shifts?
I don't know that. I just don't know.
Okay.
I don't think that it's hours. I think it might be 15 minutes or half an hour, because I've been there when the shift comes. A lot of people come early and put their lunches away and they have to change into clean outfits. So there's some kind of a gap between when they actually start. But I think because of the prep that they need and people not getting out exactly on time, there's still a conflict there.
Yeah. And even if the shifts were separated enough, you'd still need more parking than what our code offers.
Yes, yeah,
and-
definitely.
And approximately the same as what you have now.
That's true.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
And this one's maybe more for Rowan, I might have missed it in the presentation. 10th Street, that's not a front yard? Is there a landscape requirement on on 10th Street?
To the north.
Yeah.
There is a landscape buffer there already that meets ordinance requirements.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Let's see is there a photo? Yeah, they have I believe it's a type 4 hedge land screening buffer there.
Oh, a type 4 hedge. Thanks, Ron.
All right, and that'll remain, correct? Rowan?
Oh, yeah.
That would remain?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll ask if there's anybody who's here to talk to us about 902 Scrivener. Okay, without that, can I get a motion to close?
Yeah, motion to close?
All right. Support, Mr. Sizer. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Do you want me to make a motion before I address anything, or we're going into discussion?
Didn't sound like there was a whole lot of discussion. Do you want to, go ahead.
I just wonder about the landscape buffer along Front Ave.
Yes, and I had that same question, but I think that why would we want to put business owners in a position of deciding to leave their parking lots in disrepair so that they don't lose the benefits that they currently have? Part of what I plan to move for today is for our group to make another recommendation to Planning Commission to allow even situations like this to be allowed to have that administrative departure. Otherwise, the building is in such nice condition. If you look at it, they've clearly taken a lot of care to make it look very, clean, well-maintained, and then the parking lot needs resurfacing, and it's just simply the fact of having to drill down. The other option is then for a business owner to do it in sections. So I think to require changes to it just would disincentivize an owner from maintaining what's already there. And even with the $1,000 application fee, that's just money that could have been spent to get the parking lot fixed. But that's my thought on the landscape.
I would just like to make a brief follow-up to that, maybe just to have it on the record. And I think that this request is absolutely reasonable, especially for the size of the employer. But I mean, part of my understanding and why I would support those still coming to this body and there still being some sort of deliberation is that we may, going forward, be talking about much larger scale employers with much larger parking lots. And I think ultimately, with a goal of maybe trying to reduce the amount of impervious surface available downtown and encouraging these larger employers to pursue transportation demand management strategies whereby they're helping their employees get to their downtown jobs without having to drive. So maybe it is in the future, it's especially with larger sites, it's maybe not approving them and recognizing that there are other ways of getting people down here to work without having to have large expansive downtown parking lots. So I just wanted to note that, though I think in this case, that may not be the case, but I think in other cases, especially with larger employers, that could be.
Yeah, on the landscape buffer question, I think in this case, requiring along the whole length where there's existing curb cuts, right, which would make the configuration not work anymore, that I wouldn't want to require for the whole thing, but there's clearly areas along here where it could be improved without being a detriment to the applicant, and I think it's probably fairly cost neutral to the applicant. If they're tearing it down, below the base coat anyway, the cost
Can you put a picture of that back up, please, that area?
Resurface
Sure.
that chunk versus turn it into landscape is probably, it's going to be close to a wash. I mean,
So where are you suggesting on this?
kind of what he's bubbled right there, like that area be required as the.
Between the sidewalk.
So I recognize that we're talking about this property, but we're also sort of simultaneously talking a little more globally because it is something that applies to large lots, it is also something that applies to small lots. And I think that first and foremost, we would want to encourage business owners to invest in maintaining their parking lots. And to the extent that we add conditions on to this, I think that would reinforce the idea that it needs to come before this body for somebody to simply, in effect, resurface the parking lot. And I think you're going to see more and more small parking lots just go into further and further disrepair because it's cost prohibitive.
Yep, I think that point is well taken, and I'm certainly happy to have space for that global discussion. And if we want to talk more about that process, I just want to be conscious of the applicant's time and
Yes, but I think that's why I'm saying I would encourage us to not add additional requirements onto it, because I think that would,
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Lockman. I didn't understand your point there.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You want to go ahead with your,
Sure. Okay, so I will address I am moving to grant dimensional variance to allow parking within defined front yard, as well as a dimensional variance to exceed the maximum number of required parking spaces, and a dimensional variance to eliminate the required landscape screening between a parking area and a public right-of-way. All of those are based on the same findings, that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions. The lot size and parking lot situated is all a result of actions taken before any, that's a different one. They need the parking lot as it is. They are maintaining it as it is and as it has been used, and to require them to do something different would impact their business in meaningful ways. The parking lot was constructed with the building with the understanding that it would be fine to use it this way and have it with these certain dimensions. And the substantial property right, other businesses obviously get to have parking lots that help them to maintain their operations. It's not self-created because the building and lot were designed before the current ordinances that would impact it were enacted. There's no substantial detriment. It wouldn't affect the adjacent properties because the adjacent properties are in the identical situation that this property is in with their parking lots. And the master plan zoning ordinance, I don't believe that if granted, that it would materially impair the purpose or intent of the master plan, because it is simply allowing this business to operate as it has been operating with no difference other than for an improved surface area, for the surface area they're already using.
okay, can I get a second? Okay, there's a second. Anybody have any comments?
I would be on board with this except for the landscape buffer on Front Ave. I think that should be included, at least in partial.
Okay. Anybody else? Can you help me with point number 1? What's extraordinary about the property?
Well, I believe under that circumstance, we get to take it with the building as it is.
Correct.
And so, given what their building is, and it has 2 front streets, there's no place else for them to put their parking area based on how the building was constructed on the lot.
Okay.
Yep, I would direct the board to the standards in front of you. 1B, exceptional topographic or environmental conditions or other extraordinary situations on the land, building, or structure, which I believe is what Ms. Lockman is referring to.
Oh, yeah, thank you, sorry.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to reference.
Okay, and that we're not adding parking, we're just covering what's already been there. Okay, all right, perfect. Okay, so this is a motion to approve all the dimensional variances being requested, including the landscape screening and front yard parking, and the fact that there's more parking than is currently allowed by code. All those in favor? Whoop, sorry. Yes.
I just think we're going to potentially shoot this down without looking at it. When you're talking about the landscape, are you talking about from the sidewalk all the way to the building, or just a portion of it?
Just a portion of it.
So 8 foot off, maybe they still have a 10-foot thoroughfare through?
Yeah. That's all the ordinance would require.
Yeah, the maximum width per ordinance would be 5 feet.
So I know what you're saying. I do, because I own property and I've been in the situation where, but it is reasonable, to your point, that the cost of the asphalt versus 5 foot of landscaping might actually save a little bit of money. He's tearing it out anyway.
But we can encourage it without requiring it. To the extent we require it, I think that indicates that this board needs to review things like this. And even with administrative departure, I believe that staff would be able to encourage that, I assume. I just, if the option is we resurface the parking lot or we leave it cracked and with potholes,
I guess I understand what you're saying is that it should be looked at, but there's a potential that we could deny this depending on, I don't know how you're going to vote, just for not asking us to put some landscaping in, and then we can go and talk about it further as we go on.
are others concerned about the landscape screening such that they would? Because even if we approve it with the landscape screening, it doesn't mean that the owner then decides that it's worth it, right? I mean, so we can, as a board, add requirements that would then cause somebody to say, well, never mind then. And maybe they would go forward, but maybe they wouldn't. And do we want to say to the business owner anything other than, yes, great idea, please resurface the lot? Would we really deny it if they didn't? Would we prefer, as a board, for them to not resurface or discourage them from resurfacing it in order to get some shrubs there?
Unfortunately, that's the nature of this board, though. We're supposed to try to be black and white, and we can try to influence, but we're supposed to really look at what the rules really are. And then we can give variances. But how we affect change in the future is writing a letter saying this is not a good idea anymore.
They're not proposing to do anything different than is already here.
Except the rules changed on them, and I get that. All right, I'm done. Thank you for
If there's a
hearing me out.
concern, I certainly don't want them to have their variance denied.
Sure. The applicant has just informed me that they would like to amend the request and offer landscaping and the area shown on the image.
Do I need to amend the motion, or it just sticks as it is?
A good question.
How about I'll just amend my motion to incorporate the applicant's amended
Yes, thank you, Ms. Hockman.
amendment to
Yeah.
its application.
And then we need a second
Second.
from Ms. Sizer. Yeah, or
So now
excuse me,
we
Mr.
have-
Sizer.
So now we have, okay, so now we have it so that the dimensional variance to replace the asphalt area as stated, except for, well, I'm sorry.
Chair, excuse me, I believe you could add the language as amended per testimony to the end of the motion, and that
Okay.
would capture it.
So the dimensional variance is to be approved with the amendments made per testimony. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Thank you for making it a little easier. Okay, so now we're going to 1440 Front Avenue.
Okay, original item B on the agenda, 1440 Front Avenue Northwest is a dimensional variance. An existing parking lot is proposed to be replaced and requires several dimensional variances due to the loss of existing nonconformities. The variances requested in order to reconstruct the parking area include a dimensional variance to allow parking within a defined front yard, a dimensional variance to exceed the maximum number of required parking spaces, and a dimensional variance to eliminate the required landscape screening between a parking area and the Grand River. As indicated with a star on the image and screen in front of you, this parking area is located in the northwest area of the city between US 131 and the Grand River, slightly north of the previous application. It is located in very similar contexts in a historic industrial warehouse area. Unlike the other application, this property fronts onto the Grand River. As indicated on the screen and identified in the area on the red, the image is showing you the eastern portion of the city with the parking area fronting onto the Grand River. There's a small curb between the parking area and the Grand River and then some fencing, but the flood wall does not extend several feet in other areas similar to this. It is very close to grade level here. On the screen is the south portion of the property, which has additional parking. The hatched area on the site plan on your screen is the only area that is proposed to be replaced. The northern part of the parking area and the western parking area on the street side are proposed to remain with no changes. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct a portion of the parking lot in a similar manner as it exists today. As the reconstruction is greater than 25% of the total parking area, it will result in the loss of all nonconformities. Similar to the previous application, because the applicant is proposing to exceed ordinance requirements, this replacement does not qualify for the previously adopted and testified to administrative departure. So the first request, so it doesn't qualify for the administrative departure for replacement of parking in the front yard. The first part of the request, again, is for that parking in the defined front yard. As this property fronts onto the Grand River, any area between the river and the building qualifies as the front yard, as indicated there in red on your screen. The second request before you today is the elimination of screening requirements. There are screening requirements between the Grand River and parking areas. The applicant is proposing to reconstruct the parking lot in a very similar manner to as it exists today without those screening requirements. That area is indicated on your screen in purple. And then finally, the last portion of the variance request is to exceed the maximum amount of required parking. Based on ordinance requirements and building square footage, no more than 10 spaces would be permitted per ordinance. The applicant is proposing a total count of 54 spaces. So the third and final request is to exceed the maximum amount of required parking. And I will turn it over to Ms. Lockman.
Thank you. I was able to visit this site earlier this week as well with staff. Same scenario. The only difference is that we've got the riverside as the frontage. It is much like the properties adjacent to it, except that I believe MDOT to the south doesn't have parking there. It also doesn't really have any screening, but apparently it is not required to follow the ordinances. So the property is very well maintained, and they're just looking, it's very full, the parking lot's very full, obviously needed. The building was there, predates the date of the ordinances that are at issue here, and yeah, really almost identical situation to the last.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to make a comment, if I could, about the
Microphone.
the previous, again, it's Richard Craig Architects.
Thank you.
You know, I've been doing this long enough that I try to count votes as the discussion goes along. And I was about to say before this discussion, but it wasn't my time to say anything, that it really, I know the client well enough that 5 foot of landscaping there is not they could still use that space. But I thought, well, maybe I'm not serving them right by offering something that may not be required. But I didn't want them to not be approved because there still may be time to get their paving done. They've got a contract to get it done, but it's getting late. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your help with that.
Thank you.
In terms of this building, there's one thing that's different
Microphone.
about this.
Sorry.
There's one thing that's different about this site than the other site, and that this is a former railroad track that used to be along the river there, and it's contaminated soil. So there's an agreement with the city that they're going to keep that covered. So any kind of landscaping is basically in violation of that agreement, because they're basically keeping the gases down below the parking area. Other than that, it's the same things we talked about before, the same issues, and I can answer any questions you might have.
What's the shift size here?
Pardon?
What's your shift size here?
They have 34 workers and 20 office workers. I'm sorry, there's 2,
Again, this is 30 people also.
yeah. 30 some odd, yeah.
So it's the same situation. They work 2 shifts. They park on the street, those who come in the afternoon, and some of them switch their vehicle locations during their break or the lunch hour, or lunch half hour.
I think the only other thing I would add is that they have the Department of Transportation on one side, which I've been told is not willing to share parking spaces. And on the other side, we just had Streets and Parks and Rec moved next door. Not sure how they would feel about that, given that a lot of times Streets is, what was it we talked about? The snow plowing and that kind of stuff. You're going to have 24-hour movement there, as well as Parks and Rec classes going on off and on. So I'm not sure how much there would be a willingness, because I looked around and thought, there's a lot of parking in this area, and the state doesn't use all of theirs, and at the time, the city wasn't using all of theirs, but, a lot of times they don't share well, so, sorry. Is there any questions of the applicant? Okay. You want to close the public, oh, wait, is there anybody here who would like to talk to us about 1440 Front Street Northwest? Okay. Is there anything in the file, any letters, nothing? Okay.
So then, do I want to maybe make a motion to close the public hearing? Yes, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
And it's seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. What would you like to do?
I would like to move to grant a dimensional variance to allow parking within the defined front yard. I'd like to move to grant a dimensional variance to exceed the maximum number of required parking spaces per the application, and to grant a dimensional variance to eliminate the required landscape screening between a parking area and a public right-of-way. And in so moving, I'd like to address the following points. I believe that we have exceptional extraordinary circumstances or conditions under both 1B and, I believe, 1C, and that the exceptional topographic or environmental conditions or other extraordinary situations on the land, building, or structure, and that the building and the parking lot were all developed before the applicable ordinances came into effect, and there's no other place to move the parking areas to. And I also believe 1C might be, and maybe still 1B, given testimony on the record, that the area needs to stay sealed based on the history of its use and environmental contamination and requirements for sealing and containing the contamination. As to substantial property right, obviously having parking areas that support the business's use is a substantial property right, not self-created. The building and parking lot were created before the applicable ordinances. There's no substantial detriment. The adjacent properties seem to be functioning in a similar situation, and this is how it has been operating for many, many years since the building was built. And then in terms of the master plan and zoning ordinance, the variances, if granted, would be consistent with and not materially impair the purpose or intent of the master plan and provisions of the zoning ordinance, because they are going to be operating as they have been operating, and really the only practical effect is that the surface area of the parking lot will look improved.
Second?
And that's seconded. Any other conversation? I think that one of the other things that struck me on this one, as far as the landscaping went, was it's kind of silly. I mean, it drops way down to the river right there. And there is a fence there. It's very safe, but it just, number one, it would take away from the parking, and number two, as we heard today, that there's some soil issues. But number three, it's really not going to enhance anything for anybody around the riverfront, because they probably wouldn't see it from the river. So I totally agree with that. So with that, we have a motion to approve the variance to allow them to replace the parking lot as it exists with no landscaping required. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay. And that's not too bad. Our last case for today is 735 Ritzema Court Southwest. The applicant wants to move on over.
Actually,
We
Madam
will-
Chair, could I just ask, could we take a quick 2-minute restroom break?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I think I also have to state for the
Yes.
record that you have a conflict, right? Yeah. James has a conflict, so he is leaving the meeting at this point, and we're going to take a 2-minute recess.
Minute and a half.
Minute and a half. He's quick. Ritzema Court Southwest, dimensional variance.
Okay, the final application on the agenda today is for 735 Ritzma Southwest. The Hispanic Chamber of West Michigan is proposing building a new structure at the subject property. The proposed project requires two variances, a dimensional variance to allow parking area in the defined front yard, and a dimensional variance of 10 feet to reduce the required 20-foot front yard setback to 10 feet. The site is located in the southwest corner of the city. It is in a very unique location. It is in a residential zone district. It is zoned TN-LDR. The property indicated there in blue. To the west and to the north are some significant grades that drop down to Hull Street Southwest and Godfrey Southwest. It's kind of up at the corner of a hill. The property, as you can see there, is improved with a structure and accessory parking area. The building was most recently used by a religious institution. I could not find an exact date on when they vacated the structure, but I know that they pulled a building permit for some interior work in 2013. The building is proposed, some more photos of the site. There you can see the parking lot at the southern portion of the site, and then the south of the building located there in the image. And then this is the east portion of the building with the primary entrance. And then along the north side of the building is that, again, significant grade drop off from the sidewalk. This photo was taken from the sidewalk looking to the west down the grade, and you can see Hall Street through the trees there.
And that's considered the front yard in this property?
Yes, Chair. So the building is proposed to be located roughly in its existing location. This placement was chosen to account for a drive aisle on the south portion of the property, highlighted there in orange. There is not public right-of-way to the east of the property, so to avoid pickup and drop-off for the childcare use encroaching into the adjacent property, which is operated by GRPS, a drive aisle must connect to the south side of the property back to Ritzma Court, as you can see in the site plan. As the north of the property is public right-of-way, as the chair mentioned, public right-of-way extends from this corner all the way along the north property line. That is a defined front yard because it is public right-of-way. So the setback of 20 feet all along that north property line would apply. The applicant's first variance request is a 10-foot variance from this 20-foot requirement down to 10 feet. The parking lot is proposed to also be reconstructed in the same location as the building is pushed back into the site to accommodate the drive aisle. The parking lot is in the defined front yard, as you can see in the area highlighted by green. Any area between the front of the building and the public right-of-way is a front yard, so it would only apply to this most southern bank of parking. This northern bank of parking is behind the front of the building, so it's not in a defined front yard. This proposed use of the property is as a community center, including adult education, childcare, and professional development opportunities. The use of the property requires review and approval from the Planning Commission. The project is scheduled for the October 9 meeting of the Planning Commission. My colleague, Ms. Wahamaki, is here today to speak on behalf of Planning Commission specifics, if you have any, about process. And the building elevations will be reviewed by the Planning Commission. Specifics regarding the number of parking spaces and the design of the parking lot will also be reviewed by the Planning Commission. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. King.
Thank you very much, Rowan. I had an opportunity to go out and visit this site on the afternoon of September 15th. The property is, just as Rowan has described it, it's a vacant building sitting on kind of a derelict parking lot. There's two front yards, and then both to the north and west, you have very steep drop-offs down to Godfrey and Hall. And then that property to the east is owned by GRPS, so though you do see a drive that comes up there on the east side of the building, that is the entry exit to the parking lot and Cesar Chavez Elementary. Specifically, I think Ritzma Court is kind of interesting. It's a residential street, but in that it basically provides entrances to either garages or backyard parking for houses that are facing south on Liberty Street. So there aren't homes facing that street. It essentially is a drive that provides entry exit for parking. The remainder of the neighborhood, this is all off of Cesar Chavez Drive. You have a combination of, the K through 12 schools, other civic institutions, commercial, residential. It's a diverse neighborhood with multiple uses surrounding kind of a compact residential district.
To supplement their application, the applicant has also provided grading plans, and I'll let the applicant speak to the specifics of the details of these plans. And I have 2 copies, so I'll give them to Ms. Hockman and Mr. Zeiser, and you can share.
You have to share.
So the applicant, you can.
Go down.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Dixon. I'm the Director of Architecture at Pinnacle Construction Group. We are the contractor and architect on this particular project. So I think the summaries that have been done so far tell most of the story. It is a unique site, to say the least. It is technically a through site with 2 front yards, one of which is Ritzma Court, the other which is Hall Street being approximately 40 feet lower than the Ritzma Court property at the southeast corner of the building. You can see from the grading plan we've provided there is no such thing as flat spot on this site, but there is sloped area and then extremely sloped area. So we are trying to make use of the only slightly sloped area for the parking and the building as is currently laid out with the existing structure. I think it's very clear why the existing structure and existing parking lot were cited as they were, and we're looking to pretty much replicate those exact same footprints.
Okay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Just a couple. So not so much as it regards to the front yard setback. I see the need for that based on the grade, and I also see how it kind of when you look at the kind of the spirit of that ordinance, you're not necessarily intruding into a residential area on that side. Regarding the parking, and I understand you're using the existing parking lot. I'm a little bit of a broken record when it comes to this, but is there a need for the total amount of parking spaces that are being requested? Just considering kind of the location of this property, its proximity to downtown, and a lot of high-frequency public transit, are there alternatives to needing that additional front yard parking?
It's a great question. In our opinion, it is because this isn't just a child care facility. If it was child care only, mostly you're talking about the drop-off locations, right? Mm-hmm. However, there is also an office use to this building. There is also adult instruction being done on the main floor of this building, so there will be classes being taught at the same time that the office component is in operation, as well as the child care component. They're all going to be operating at the same time. So it is our opinion that, yes, this amount of parking is required for those 3 uses to coexist.
Okay, and then you talked a little bit about the grade, and having visited the site, I very much saw that there's a steep grade kind of as you get down to Godfrey, so that does limit your ability to position the building.
It does, and the other part of that I will add is that because we have a child care center as part of this project, we are required by the state to have a playground area. That playground area, there are minimum square footage requirements for how big it needs to be, so that is another item that we are trying to fit onto, again, the somewhat flat portion of this site, which is part of the reason that the parking lot cannot be pushed back to the north. The other problem being that we hit that slope very quickly.
Okay. And then I think just lastly, I didn't see anything in the record, and Rowan, you may be able to speak to this too. Were there any letters of support or opposition, either from the neighborhood association, the surrounding neighbors?
Do you want to speak to that, Melissa?
I need
Do you want to come forward?
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Melissa Buffner, President of the Hispanic Center of Western Michigan. This is our property. I think we said the Hispanic Chamber, so just wanted to note that. Yes, we did receive letters of support from Rocio and her board at the Roosevelt Neighborhood Association, as well as a few others, including Rick Baker from the Chamber, the GR Chamber, and Maggie with the Children's Museum. And then we are, sorry, my mind is blanking, but there is a fourth letter of support for this project. This project is a 3-story, 18,000 square foot community hub. Just to elaborate a little bit, it is daycare and preschool on the first floor, workforce and talent development, teaching kitchen, and some partner rooms for about 40 agencies to have a rotation on the second floor, and then all of our Hispanic Center pillar services in addition to a legal wing that will be added and serving on the third floor.
Thank you.
I don't have any additional questions.
Anybody else? Okay, all right. Yeah, I went out there and saw the exact same thing. It's a tough lot. It really is, tough, difficult. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a very challenging little piece of property. Okay. There's nobody in the audience to speak for public comment. So did you have something you wanted to add?
No.
Okay. Do you want to close the public hearing?
Just maybe one more question for Rowan, kind of a clarifying question. I know I touched on it a little bit when speaking with Matt, but can you talk a little bit about, when we're talking about that front yard setback, like what the intent of that, the intent in the zoning code?
Yeah, that setback specifically is for non-residential uses in residential areas. So the intention is to buffer those non-residential uses from residential uses, provide a little bit more space so they're not, that intensity isn't as felt as much in a residential zone district compared to a non-residential zone district. So that 20-foot setback is specific, again, for non-residential uses in residential zone districts.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll make a motion to close the public comment.
Okay. Second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 2, 3, 5. Okay. All right. Do you want to proceed?
Yes, I'd like to proceed. My intention is to split this into 2 motions. One for the front yard setback and then one for the front yard parking. I'm going to start with the dimensional variance. Number 1, the front yard setback, and I'd like to make a motion to grant a dimensional variance of 10 feet to reduce the required 10-foot required 20 front yard setback to 10 feet. And then I'll go through and review the standards. Standard number 1, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances. I believe that this condition has been met due to the shape of the lot and its environmental conditions. The lot is narrow and has 2 front yards to the north and south sides of the property. The east side of the property is privately owned by GRPS, while the west and north sides have steep topographical declines and drop-offs to Godfrey Avenue and Hall Street, respectively. Standard 2, a substantial property right. I believe that this has been satisfied. The existing neighborhood is a mix of single-family homes, small offices, commercial, and K-12 schools, and this variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of these similar property rights. Additionally, other properties along including Cesar Chavez Elementary School, enjoy parking rights along Ritzema Court. Standard 3, not self-created. I believe that this has also been satisfied. The immediate practical difficulty causing the need for the variance was not created by an action or inaction by the applicant. This practical difficulty relates specifically to the topography of the land and the property having 2 front yards. Standard number 4, which addresses the issue of no substantial detriment. I believe that this has also been satisfied. Granting this variance will not cause significant harm to neighboring properties or the surrounding community. First, there was no vocal opposition from neighbors, and we also heard that there was a number of organizations from the Roosevelt Park Neighborhood Association, the GR Chamber, and the Children's Museum, which pledged support for the project. Second, the proposed, Second, the setback reduction is not adjacent to a residential use. Standard 5 regarding the master plan and zoning ordinance, I believe is satisfied. The intent of the required setback in the zoning ordinance is to provide a buffer between residential and non-residential uses due to the topography of the land and the placement of the adjacent roadway and the right-of-way to the requested setback. No residential uses are directly impacted. Additionally, this request aligns with the Bridge to Our Future Community Master Plan, which identifies land use in this area as predominantly a mix of housing with small office, commercial, religious, K through 12, and other civic institutions.
Their support. Any other comments or additions? The only other comment I would make is when I was there, it was hard to drive down Ritzema Court because there were so many cars parked on it. Now, I noticed in the pictures there weren't, but it was pretty packed, so I understand. But that's probably for our next one, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. All those in favor of the motion to approve the front yard setbacks? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Got that.
Okay, now I will move on to my next motion. I'd like to make a motion to grant a dimensional variance to allow parking in area, allow a parking area in the defined front yard. And now I will go through and review the standards. I apologize, the first three are very similar, so I'm a little bit on repeat. Standard 1, exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions are satisfied due to the shape of the lot and its environmental conditions, with the lot being narrow and having two front yards to the north and south sides of the property, plus these steep declines in topography. We see that there's limited options for parking on the property. Standard 2, of substantial property right is satisfied. This property is going to exist in a neighborhood of mixed uses, homes, small offices, commercial, and K through 12 schools, which all observe similar rights regarding parking. Additionally, other properties along Ritzema Court also enjoy access to parking. And I think also to Madam Chair's comments, there's limited street parking, and I think not allowing this parking would only exacerbate that problem for the neighborhood. Standard 3, not self-created. The immediate practical difficulty causing the need for the variance was not created by the applicant. It's specifically related to the topography of the land and the property having two front yards, all of which are not accessible, or one of which is not accessible. Standard 4, which addresses the issue of no substantial detriment, has been satisfied. Granting this variance will not cause significant harm to neighboring properties. I think alternatively, it'll actually help support and improve access on that street and the overall neighborhood. There was, again, support from organizations like the GR Chamber and the Roosevelt Neighborhood Park Association. Second, the proposed parking layout will reflect the existing development pattern and footprint of the existing property. And third, I again have to note that the property does have ample access to public transportation. I hope your constituents use it when parking isn't available to help reduce automobile traffic in and around the neighborhood. And then standard 5 regarding the master plan and zoning ordinance, I believe that this is also satisfied as this development meets, again, the spirit of the Bridge of Our Future Community Master Plan, designating this area as a compact neighborhood with the intent to create and maintain and promote a variety of housing opportunities while enhancing the physical environment and providing additional cultural amenities and improving an abandoned site, which will significantly improve the community.
Support. There's a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We are done. All right. Thank you. Work with staff. Good luck. All right. Is there any old business?
Nope, I have no additional points for discussion today.
Okay.
I anticipate one case next month. I have not received any additional applications, so it will just be the one.
Okay. And we'll take care of board vacancies and
Yep, we are working on that. I need a couple procedural things from the vacancies, and I'm working with the clerk's office to get all that buttoned up, and I'll follow up with Mr. Preston on next steps.
okay. And can you give us an update on the biomed window issue?
Oh, yep. Last I heard from the applicant that they are intending to install a window film that meets ordinance requirements but still provides a sense of privacy.
Okay.
Yep.
Do they have a timeline on that?
I can follow up with them. I haven't heard anything from them in about 2 weeks.
Just as a learning lesson, is that something that this board should include when we're talking about working with staff to better meet the code? Or, I mean, we tabled that to give them some grace.
Yeah, I think that was a very unique situation, and there's a lot of background on that case that I'm happy to speak to you directly outside of a public meeting.
But, so we don't need to take
No,
anything away from that?
I don't think there was anything that requires additional direction or follow-up with the board regarding the process for that case.
All right, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, guys. Thanks for being here. Whew.